At the sprawling outdoor range just beyond the outskirts of Cedarville, the morning air carried a crisp chill that hinted at the approaching fall. The sun rose slowly over the horizon, casting long shadows across rows of shooting lanes meticulously arranged for the national championship. The hum of anticipation buzzed softly among the gathered crowd, competitors warming up, coaches fine-tuning last-minute strategies, and spectators eagerly awaiting the spectacle of marksmanship excellence. Among the throng stood Emma Lawson, a quiet figure who blended almost seamlessly into the background. At 24, she was slender and unassuming, dressed in a simple dark jacket and worn jeans, her auburn hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Her eyes, a soft hazel, scanned the range calmly as she methodically unpacked her gear from a battered black case. Unlike the other competitors whose polished equipment gleamed under the morning sun, Emma's rifle bore subtle signs of custom modifications, though she kept those details carefully guarded. Despite her unremarkable demeanor, the air around Emma was thick with a curious tension. The seasoned marksmen eyed her with thinly veiled skepticism, their glances charged with disbelief and, in some cases, outright derision. Whispers floated through the crowd, some questioning why someone like Emma had even qualified for such a prestigious event, others outright dismissing her as a token participant. The very idea of a young woman, unassuming and unknown, stepping into this arena seemed to some an anomaly, a breach of the unspoken hierarchy that valued experience and flamboyance over quiet precision. Jake Turner, a brash and confident figure known for his cocky swagger, lounged against the railing near the shooting line. His sharp blue eyes locked on Emma with a mixture of amusement and contempt. His reputation as a top competitor was well-earned, and he relished the opportunity to belittle anyone he deemed unworthy. "You sure you're in the right place, kid?" he sneered, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "This isn't a charity event." Emma's lips pressed into a thin line, but she did not respond. Instead, she continued her preparations with deliberate calm, assembling her rifle with practiced hands. Each movement was precise, every adjustment made with quiet confidence. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, some spectators recording the unfolding scene on their phones, broadcasting the skepticism live to an audience far beyond the range's fences. As the competition began, the air shifted to a charged silence. The crack of rifle shots echoed through the hills, punctuated by the occasional cheer or groan from the gathered crowd. Emma remained focused, her breathing steady as she took her position at the firing line. Observers noted her unhurried pace, a stark contrast to the hurried, flashy displays of some of the younger shooters eager to make an impression. The range officials called the first round, a standard precision test at 100 meters. Competitors stepped up in turn, their shots ringing out with varying degrees of success. Jake Turner fired his rounds with characteristic bravado, each bullet landing near the center but accompanied by exaggerated gestures and boasts. When it came to Emma's turn, a hush fell over the crowd. She raised her rifle, her eyes narrowing slightly, and exhaled slowly. The report of her shot was crisp and clean, the bullet striking dead center on the target. A few murmurs of surprise rippled through the spectators. Jake smirked, not yet convinced. "Beginner's luck," he muttered under his breath, but a flicker of unease crossed his features. This was no ordinary competitor, and the ease with which Emma delivered a perfect shot challenged the assumptions held by many. As the rounds progressed, Emma's performance remained consistently strong. Her shots were precise, calculated, and deliberate. Yet, despite her skill, the dismissive attitudes lingered. Some whispered that she must be cheating, others that she was only lucky. The crowd's attention was divided, part awe, part disbelief. Emma's coach, an older man with a steely gaze and a quiet demeanor, stood a few feet behind her. His presence was a steady anchor amid the chaos of the competition. He watched Emma with a mixture of pride and concern, knowing the uphill battle she faced, not just against the targets, but against the prejudices that surrounded her. The sun climbed higher, casting a warm glow that softened the harsh edges of the competitive atmosphere. Emma adjusted her stance and prepared for the next stage, the tension in the air thickening as the competition intensified. Around her, the other competitors exchanged glances that mingled respect and wariness, their earlier dismissiveness giving way to reluctant acknowledgement of her capabilities. Yet, beneath the surface of the unfolding contest, an unspoken challenge simmered. Emma's presence here was more than just a test of marksmanship, it was a quiet rebellion against the expectations and limitations imposed by others. In this arena, she was determined not just to compete, but to redefine what was possible. As the morning wore on, the range became a theater of contrasts, the polished confidence of the veterans clashing with the steady resolve of the newcomer. Emma's calm focus, undeterred by the jeers and doubts, set her apart in a way that was impossible to ignore. The competition was only just beginning, but already the narrative was shifting. The quiet girl in the corner was no longer just an underdog, she was becoming a force to be reckoned with. In the midst of the crowd, smartphones captured every moment, broadcasting live feeds peppered with commentary and speculation. Social media buzzed with incredulous posts questioning Emma's place in the event. Yet, the shots she fired told a different story, one of determination, precision, and a refusal to be sidelined. As the next round was announced, Emma tightened her grip on her rifle, her expression steady and unreadable. The murmurs of disbelief echoed around her, but she remained unfazed. To the onlookers, she was a quiet anomaly, a puzzle wrapped in calm determination. To herself, she was ready to prove that skill, not spectacle, was the true measure of a marksman. The stage was set. The competition was underway. And Emma Lawson, the quiet competitor with the unyielding resolve, was poised to challenge every expectation. The early afternoon sun bore down on the range, casting a harsh light that made the slight sheen of sweat on Emma Lawson's brow more visible to those watching. The quiet girl who had silently dismantled assumptions with her early shots now stood at the center of a growing storm. The mix of curiosity, skepticism, and outright disbelief had deepened, transforming the crowd's murmurs into pointed whispers and outright taunts. Emma's unique story had begun to surface, one that few could wrap their heads around. Since birth, she had lived with legal blindness, a condition that rendered her world a blur of indistinct shapes and shadows. Most would have written off such a limitation, especially in a sport so dependent on keen eyesight and precision. But Emma had refused to accept the confines of her condition. Years of relentless training and innovative adaptations had pushed her beyond what anyone thought possible. Her coach, a former military marksman known to few outside their circle, had been instrumental. He had seen the spark in Emma early on, a determination that defied logic and conventional wisdom. Under his watchful eye, Emma had undergone rigorous training regimes that rejected traditional methods. Instead, she had learned to rely on sound, muscle memory, and a finely tuned sense of spatial awareness to guide her shots. Yet, none of this mattered to the other competitors, at least not yet. Jake Turner, the loudmouthed favorite, embodied the skepticism that permeated the range. He paced near the firing line, a smirk plastered across his face as he sized up Emma. "You really think you belong here?" he taunted, voice carrying across the stands. "I've seen rookies with better aim and eyesight." Emma did not respond. Her focus was absolute, her hands steady as she prepared her rifle for the next round. But Jake's words ignited a ripple of laughter from some of his supporters, the kind of laughter that stung sharpest when directed at someone who refused to fight back with words. The social media feeds exploded with clips of the exchanges, Jake's sneers, Emma's silence, and the growing crowd's reactions. Comments ranged from supportive to cruel, reflecting a divided audience. To many, Emma was a novelty, a curiosity at best. To others, she was a symbol of something larger, though few dared voice that openly. As the competition progressed, the organizers announced a challenge that would test not only aim but adaptability, a moving target at 50 meters, a task demanding quick reflexes and sharp vision. When Jake heard this, his grin widened. "This one's mine," he declared loudly, practically daring Emma to try. Emma's coach stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "She'll take the challenge," he said, eyes meeting Jake's with unyielding resolve. The crowd erupted, some in disbelief, others in excited anticipation. The idea of Emma, legally blind, attempting a moving target shot blindfolded was almost laughable to many. Jake's supporters jeered, betting loudly that she would fail. The atmosphere grew electric, charged with a mix of ridicule and genuine curiosity. Emma accepted without hesitation. She reached into her bag and pulled out a custom-built rifle, its sleek black frame a stark contrast to the more traditional weapons around it. What caught the crowd's eye were the subtle but unmistakable differences, a tactile grip designed for enhanced feedback, and an advanced audio-guided sight system that emitted faint directional cues, allowing her to hear the target's position rather than see it. Whispers spread quickly, some called it cheating, others marveled at the ingenuity. Yet Emma remained composed, her expression unreadable as she adjusted the rifle and prepared to mount the blindfold that would seal her reliance on technology and instinct alone. Jake stepped forward, mockingly placing a black cloth over her eyes. "Good luck, you're gonna need it," he sneered. The crowd's laughter swelled, but Emma's coach held steady, confident in the preparation that had led to this moment. As Emma took her position, the range fell into a heavy silence. The moving target, a small metal plate mounted on a rail, began its steady sweep across the 50-meter mark. Emma's breathing slowed, her fingers curling around the rifle with practiced ease. The audio cues from her sight whispered faintly in her ears, guiding her aim with subtle pulses and directional tones. The narrative slid briefly into the past, revealing the countless hours Emma had spent mastering this unique skill. Training in sound isolation chambers, honing her reflexes to a razor's edge, and developing an intimate connection with her rifle had become her world. Muscle memory was her compass, and the faint hum of the target's movement was her guide. Spectators watched with growing unease. The jeers faded into whispers as Emma's calm focus became impossible to ignore. Jake shifted uneasily, his bravado cracking under the weight of uncertainty. Even some of his staunchest supporters found themselves holding their breath. Then, the shot rang out. A clean, precise report echoed through the range, followed by a sharp metallic clang as the bullet struck the moving target dead center. The plate split neatly in two, a perfect hit that silenced the crowd. The stunned expressions of Emma's rivals were captured by dozens of lenses. Jake's face twisted in disbelief, his earlier taunts replaced by a grudging respect he refused to voice. The live broadcast captured the moment in real time, viewers around the country sharing in the shock and awe. Emma lowered her rifle slowly, the blindfold still in place, and allowed herself a brief exhale. The silence held for a heartbeat before the crowd erupted into applause, tentative at first, then building into genuine admiration. Yet, the victory was bittersweet. Whispers of controversy began to circulate immediately afterward. Rivals questioned the fairness of Emma's technology, accusing her of gaining an unfair advantage. Social media buzzed with heated debates, some calling for her disqualification, others defending her right to compete on her own terms. Emma's coach stepped forward again, addressing the growing storm with measured calm. Her equipment complies fully with the competition's regulations, he stated firmly, his voice carrying authority. What you're witnessing is the result of innovation and determination, not cheating. Behind the scenes, competition officials began a thorough inspection of Emma's gear, scrutinizing every component with meticulous care. Emma herself remained resolute, unfazed by the growing scrutiny. Her focus was unshaken, her resolve strengthened by the challenge. As the crowd gradually absorbed the reality of what had transpired, a shift took place. The narrative was no longer just about a girl who couldn't see well trying to compete, it was about a competitor who had redefined the boundaries of possibility. The skepticism was giving way to a reluctant respect, though the battle for acceptance was far from over. Emma's journey was no longer just a personal crusade, it had become a catalyst for debate within the shooting community. Accessibility, technology, and the spirit of competition were all under the spotlight. Her presence forced those watching to confront their own biases and assumptions. Jake Turner, once so sure of his superiority, now found himself grappling with an uncomfortable truth. His dismissive smirks had been replaced by a grudging acknowledgement that Emma Lawson was not just a participant, she was a contender. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the range, Emma prepared for the next round. The whispers and stares still followed her, but they no longer carried the sharp edge of derision. Instead, they hinted at a grudging respect, a recognition that something extraordinary was unfolding before their eyes. The competition had shifted. Emma's story was no longer about limitation, it was about overcoming, innovating, and challenging the very fabric of what defined a champion. And though the path ahead promised new obstacles, Emma faced them with the quiet determination that had brought her this far, ready to prove that true skill transcends sight, expectation, and doubt. As the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the Cedarville shooting range, a charged silence settled over the assembled crowd. The air crackled with a blend of anticipation and incredulity as Emma Lawson stepped forward, accepting the gauntlet thrown down by Jake Turner and the skeptics alike. The challenge was formidable, a moving target at 50 meters, blindfolded. The very thought seemed absurd to many, yet Emma's calm demeanor bespoke a deeper confidence. Jake's smirk lingered, a mask of disbelief barely concealing the flicker of unease that had begun to gnaw at his bravado. He lounged near the firing line, arms crossed, eyes fixed on Emma with a mixture of amusement and skepticism. The crowd around him buzzed with chatter, some jeering, others whispering in disbelief, their social media feeds alive with clips of the unfolding drama. Yet, beneath the noise, a slow shift was underway, a dawning realization that this was no ordinary contest. Emma reached into her gear bag and pulled out her rifle, sleek, matte black, and unlike any standard competition weapon on the range. The subtle contours and custom fittings hinted at a design born from necessity and innovation rather than tradition. The crowd leaned in, some squinting to catch details, a grip textured for tactile feedback, a sighting system emitting a faint, almost imperceptible hum. Her coach, standing just behind her with a steady gaze, nodded once, a silent signal that the moment had arrived. Emma carefully affixed a blindfold over her eyes, the soft fabric cutting off the world of shapes and colors entirely. The murmur of the crowd dipped to a hush, punctuated only by the metallic clatter as the moving target began its steady sweep across the 50-meter mark. The target, a small steel plate mounted on a rail, glinted in the fading sunlight as it slid with precise, mechanical rhythm. The audio-guided sight embedded in Emma's rifle came alive, emitting a series of delicate pulses and directional tones that only she could hear. To the untrained ear, it was a subtle hum, but to Emma, it was a symphony of guidance, an invisible map that translated space into sound. Her fingers curled tightly around the tactile grip, each ridge and pattern a language of feedback that told her the rifle's exact orientation. The narrative shifted briefly, peeling back layers of Emma's training regimen. She had spent countless hours in soundproof chambers, learning to isolate and interpret the faintest noises. Muscle memory had been honed to perfection through endless repetition, each motion burned into her reflexes like a silent mantra. The rifle was an extension of her body, and the audio cues a bridge between perception and action. With a slow, deliberate breath, Emma steadied herself. The world had shrunk to the rhythm of the moving target and the pulse of the rifle's guidance. Time seemed to stretch, each second laden with electric tension. Then, the shot broke the silence, a crisp, resonant report that echoed across the range. The bullet struck true, slamming into the moving steel plate with such precision that it split cleanly in two. The sharp clang of metal on metal reverberated through the air, silencing the crowd in stunned disbelief. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then, a ripple of astonishment spread like wildfire. Phones were raised, cameras zoomed in, and the live broadcast captured every stunned expression. Jake's smirk faltered, his jaw tightening as he stared at the shattered target. The laughter that had once filled the air was replaced by murmurs of awe and grudging respect. Emma lowered her rifle slowly, the blindfold still firmly in place. Her breathing was steady, her posture relaxed yet poised. She turned slightly toward her coach, who met her gaze with a nod of approval. The unspoken communication between them spoke volumes, a testament to the preparation and trust that underpinned this moment. Yet, the triumph was shadowed by the rising tide of controversy. As whispers of admiration grew, so did the voices of dissent. Rival teams and spectators alike began questioning the legitimacy of Emma's equipment. Accusations of unfair advantage surfaced swiftly, fueled by a mix of jealousy, disbelief, and the discomfort of witnessing norms challenged. Social media erupted with debates, some hailed Emma as a pioneer breaking barriers, others condemned her as a cheat exploiting technology. The hashtag #Fairplay soon trended among critics, while supporters rallied under #InnovateToCompete. The polarization was stark and immediate. Competition officials, sensing the mounting tension, moved quickly. Behind the scenes, Emma's rifle was subjected to rigorous inspection. Every component was examined with meticulous care. Measurements were taken, electronic outputs analyzed, and calibration records scrutinized. The process was exhaustive, designed to ensure compliance with the sport's stringent regulations. Emma observed the scrutiny with quiet confidence, her calm demeanor unshaken by the spotlight. The accusations, while unsettling, only strengthened her resolve. She knew the rules inside out, and her equipment had been crafted to meet every standard. This was not a gimmick but the culmination of years of innovation and adaptation. Meanwhile, Jake Turner's attitude shifted subtly. The cocky bravado gave way to a wary acknowledgement that Emma was more than a curiosity. His earlier taunts were replaced by a guarded silence, as he watched her with a newfound wariness. Among his supporters, discussions turned to grudging respect, though pride kept many from admitting it openly. As the inspection concluded, officials publicly affirmed the legality of Emma's rifle and its technological enhancements. Their statement emphasized the spirit of competition and the role innovation could play in expanding accessibility without compromising fairness. The announcement sent ripples through the community, sparking further debate but also opening doors for conversations about inclusivity and progress. With the controversy addressed, Emma prepared to return to the firing line. The blindfold was removed, but the weight of the challenge remained. The next round promised even greater difficulty, a complex course demanding precision and adaptability. Yet, Emma's expression was serene, her focus razor-sharp. The crowd's energy had shifted palpably. No longer purely skeptical, many now watched with a mixture of anticipation and respect. The narrative had evolved from doubt to a cautious belief that Emma Lawson was rewriting the rules, not just of the competition, but of what it meant to be a marksman. As Emma raised her rifle once more, the sun dipped toward the horizon, bathing the range in a golden glow. The moment was electric with possibility. The game had changed, and Emma was at the center of it all, silent, steady, and unyielding. The stage was set for the next act in a story that was far from over. The late afternoon sun cast a warm amber glow over the Cedarville shooting range, bathing the scene in a light that softened the harsh edges of competition and skepticism. The crowd, which had been rife with a mix of disbelief and curiosity, now held its breath as Emma Lawson prepared for the next challenge. The air was thick with anticipation, the murmurs of the spectators blending into a low hum of collective focus. Emma stood at the firing line, her posture calm and deliberate, a stark contrast to the restless energy around her. The blindfold was removed, revealing eyes that shimmered with quiet determination. Yet beneath that composed exterior lay a story few had grasped fully, a story forged through relentless discipline, innovative adaptation, and a refusal to be defined by limitations. Her coach, a man whose steely gaze had become a fixture at her side, observed with a mixture of pride and resolve. He had witnessed her journey from the earliest days of unconventional training, through countless hours of honing senses beyond sight, to the mastery of a technique that melded technology with instinct. Now, as the crowd's skepticism shifted toward wary respect, he knew the true test was imminent. The next round demanded precision on a new level, a complex target array requiring rapid adjustment and flawless execution. It was a challenge designed to separate the skilled from the exceptional. For Emma, it was an arena where the skills she had cultivated in silence would be laid bare. As Emma steadied herself, the narrative peeled back to reveal the core of her preparation. Traditional training methods had been inadequate for her unique needs. Instead, she had embraced a regimen that emphasized sound localization, muscle memory, and tactile feedback. Hours were spent in sound chambers, isolating the minutest auditory clues. Her rifle was no ordinary weapon but a custom instrument, fitted with an audio-guided sight that translated spatial information into a language of subtle pulses and tones. Her hands, sensitive to the textures and vibrations of the rifle's grip, communicated a wealth of information beyond sight. Every nuance was internalized, every movement rehearsed until it became second nature. This was not mere compensation, it was transformation, a new way of perceiving and interacting with the world. Back on the range, Emma's focus was palpable. The crowd's attentiveness sharpened, whispers fading into silence as she took aim at the first target in the array. The rifle's guidance system emitted faint cues, almost imperceptible to those untrained, but to Emma, these signals were as clear as sight. Her finger hovered over the trigger, muscles coiled like a spring. With a steady exhale, she squeezed the trigger. The report echoed crisply, the bullet striking the target dead center. The sequence continued, a rapid series of shots, each executed with unwavering precision. As the targets shifted and varied, Emma adapted seamlessly, her movements fluid and confident. Spectators watched, some leaning forward in disbelief, others exchanging quiet nods of approval. Jake Turner, standing a few meters away, crossed his arms, eyes narrowed but betraying a grudging respect. The earlier arrogance had given way to contemplation. The realization that Emma was not merely a novelty but a formidable competitor was settling in. Emma's coach remained composed, though a flicker of satisfaction crossed his face. He knew the stakes, the scrutiny, the pressure, but also the merit of what was unfolding. Her performance was more than a display of skill, it was a statement against prejudice and underestimation. As the final target fell, the crowd erupted into applause. The sound was a mixture of surprise and admiration, a collective acknowledgement of the extraordinary. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment for a world watching through screens and streams. Social media feeds buzzed with messages ranging from astonishment to praise, the narrative shifting irrevocably. Yet beneath the applause, Emma remained grounded. She lowered her rifle with measured grace, her breathing steady, eyes clear and focused. The journey ahead was still long, the path fraught with challenges beyond the range itself. In the quiet that followed, a few voices rose, questions about fairness, the limits of technology in sport, and the boundaries of competition. But these were tempered by the undeniable reality of Emma's talent and the innovation that had made it possible. Among the crowd, former critics began to reconsider. Jake Turner approached, his voice low and steady. "I underestimated you," he admitted, the words carrying the weight of reluctant respect. "You've changed the game." Emma nodded, acknowledging the shift without fanfare. Her focus remained on the next challenge, the next opportunity to prove that skill transcended sight, prejudice, and convention. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the range, a new chapter was unfolding. Emma Lawson, once dismissed and doubted, was becoming a symbol, not just of mastery, but of resilience and transformation. The crowd dispersed slowly, carrying with them a story that would ripple far beyond the confines of Cedarville. The narrative was no longer about limitations, but about the limitless potential of determination, innovation, and the human spirit. Emma's journey was a beacon for those who dared to challenge expectations and redefine possibility on their own terms. The morning dawned crisp and clear over the Cedarville shooting range, the sky an endless canvas of pale blue streaked with wisps of white clouds. A fresh energy coursed through the grounds, the excitement of the previous day's revelations still palpable in the air. Emma Lawson stood poised at the firing line, her presence commanding a quiet respect that had only grown since her remarkable blindfolded shot on the moving target. The crowd had transformed, from doubtful skeptics to attentive witnesses of something extraordinary. The next challenge was announced, an impossible shot at a moving target 600 meters away, a task that even seasoned marksmen regarded as a test of near-mythical difficulty. The distance was unforgiving, the target a mere speck against the sprawling landscape. Few had ever attempted, let alone succeeded at such a feat, and the odds were stacked heavily against Emma. Yet, the murmurs of disbelief were tempered now by a grudging recognition of her skill. Jake Turner stood nearby, his usual cocky grin replaced by a tight-lipped concentration. His earlier taunts had faded into silence, replaced by an uneasy awareness that Emma was no ordinary competitor. The crowd buzzed with anticipation, whispers rippling through the stands as cameras focused on the young woman who had become the story of the competition. Emma's coach lingered at her side, his steady gaze reflecting years of experience and a deep faith in her abilities. He watched as Emma methodically unpacked her rifle, revealing the true nature of her weapon, a marvel of precision engineering and innovation. The rifle, sleek and matte black, was outfitted with custom modifications far beyond the standard competition models. Advanced ballistic calculators, environmental sensors, and a specialized sighting system worked in harmony, feeding Emma data through subtle audio cues and tactile feedback. The narrative briefly shifted, peeling back layers of Emma's preparation for this moment. Long before arriving at this range, she had dedicated herself to mastering the art of long-distance shooting. Hours had been spent analyzing wind patterns, studying atmospheric conditions, and calibrating her equipment to account for every variable. Her training had been rigorous, blending traditional marksmanship with cutting-edge technology and an unyielding will. As the moving target, a small steel plate mounted on a distant rail, began its slow, deliberate sweep across the 600-meter mark, Emma settled into position. The weight of the rifle was familiar, an extension of her body. Her breathing slowed, muscles tensed and released in a practiced rhythm. The audio-guided sight sang softly in her ears, translating the subtle shifts of the target's movement into a language of pulses and tones. The crowd watched in near silence, the tension palpable. Phones and cameras captured the moment, the live broadcast streaming to thousands who held their collective breath. Emma's finger hovered over the trigger, her focus absolute. Then, the shot rang out, a sharp, clean report that echoed across the valley. The bullet traced a near-perfect arc, cutting through the air with precision born of expertise and technology. The steel plate exploded into two halves, the impact resonating like a thunderclap. For a moment, the world held its breath. Then, the silence shattered as applause erupted from the crowd, a wave of astonishment and admiration sweeping through the stands. Faces that had once been etched with doubt now gleamed with disbelief and respect. Jake Turner's expression twisted, his earlier confidence replaced by stunned silence. The live broadcast captured every reaction, the gasps, the cheers, and the stunned expressions of Emma's rivals. Social media erupted, the footage going viral within minutes. Comments poured in from around the world, praising the shot as nothing short of miraculous. Yet, beneath the celebration, an undercurrent of tension simmered. Whispers of controversy began to circulate again. Some questioned the legitimacy of Emma's equipment, accusing her of using unfair technological advantages rather than pure skill. The debate flared anew across forums and feeds, dividing opinions sharply. Emma found herself at the center of a storm that extended far beyond the range. Her coach stepped forward, meeting the challenge head-on. "Every piece of equipment Emma uses complies fully with the competition's regulations," he stated firmly during a press briefing. "This is innovation within the rules, skill amplified, not replaced." Her achievement is a testament to dedication and determination. Meanwhile, officials initiated another round of inspections, scrutinizing the rifle and its components with renewed intensity. Emma remained composed throughout, her demeanor steady and unshaken. She understood the stakes, not just for herself, but for the broader implications of her success. As the crowd began to process the magnitude of what they had witnessed, a subtle transformation took root. Emma was no longer just a competitor, she was becoming a symbol of resilience, of pushing boundaries, and of redefining what was possible. Jake Turner approached her quietly, the tension between them softened by mutual recognition. "That was one hell of a shot," he admitted, his voice low but sincere. "You've earned every bit of this." Emma nodded, acknowledging the moment without fanfare. The competition continued around them, but this instant marked a turning point, a collision of talent, technology, and tenacity that would reverberate far beyond the shooting range. As the sun climbed higher, casting sharp light on the faces of the crowd, Emma prepared for the challenges yet to come. The impossible shot had been made, but her journey was far from over. The narrative of the competition, and perhaps the sport itself, was shifting, and at its center stood a young woman who refused to be constrained by limits others imposed. The applause still echoed as Emma adjusted her gear and readied herself for the next round, the weight of expectation balanced by a quiet confidence born of mastery. The story unfolding at Cedarville was no longer about a girl with a disability entering a competition, it was about a marksman breaking barriers, shattering preconceptions, and inspiring a new generation to see beyond limitations and believe in the power of resolve. The air at the Cedarville shooting range had shifted from one of awe to a simmering tension that threaded through the crowd like an undercurrent of electricity. Emma Lawson's flawless shot at 600 meters had sent ripples far beyond the immediate circle of competitors and spectators. Yet, as whispers of admiration spread, so too did murmurs of suspicion and challenge. The narrative was no longer solely about her skill, it had become a battleground over the legitimacy of innovation in sport. The moment after the shot's echo faded, a faction of rival shooters and their supporters began to coalesce, their voices rising in a chorus of doubt and accusation. Led by a formidable team known for their traditionalist stance, they questioned the fairness of Emma's custom-built rifle and its advanced technological components. "This isn't marksmanship," one declared loudly, "it's a gimmick, a technological crutch that undermines the spirit of competition." The social media backlash was immediate and fierce. Clips of Emma's shots flooded platforms worldwide, accompanied by heated debates. The hashtag #FairPlay soon trended among detractors, while supporters rallied under #InnovateToCompete. Forums buzzed with polarized opinions, some heralding Emma as a pioneer breaking barriers, others decrying her as an unfair advantage. The digital clamor mirrored the unrest on the range itself. Emma stood at the center of this storm, her expression composed but eyes reflecting the weight of scrutiny. The cheers of the crowd mingled with the sharp sting of accusation, creating a complex symphony of support and challenge. Her coach remained a steadfast pillar beside her, his presence a bulwark against the rising tide of controversy. Competition officials moved swiftly to address the escalating tension. Behind closed doors, they conducted exhaustive inspections of Emma's equipment. Every component of her rifle was scrutinized, calibrations checked, electronic outputs analyzed, and mechanical parts examined. The process was painstaking, designed to uphold the integrity of the competition while navigating the uncharted territory of technological advancement. Emma watched the proceedings with quiet confidence, aware that the validation of her gear was crucial not only for her standing but for the broader future of athletes embracing innovation. The hours stretched on, the weight heavy with anticipation. Meanwhile, the crowd's attitude softened as the official statements began to emerge. The governing body affirmed that Emma's equipment was fully compliant with competition rules. Their declaration emphasized that innovation did not equate to unfair advantage, but rather represented the evolution of the sport. This pronouncement ignited fresh waves of discussion, debates about accessibility, fairness, and the role of technology in enhancing human capability. Jake Turner, who had once mocked Emma's presence, now regarded her with a mixture of respect and contemplation. His earlier bravado had given way to a recognition of the shifting landscape. Approaching her quietly, he acknowledged, "You've got the skill and the guts. This is bigger than any of us thought." Emma nodded, the moment between them unspoken but profound. The challenge was no longer just about hitting targets, it was about redefining what competition could be. As the controversy simmered, Emma prepared to return to the firing line for another demonstration of her prowess. The next round promised greater complexity, testing not only accuracy but adaptability under pressure. Cameras and spectators focused intently, the atmosphere electric with expectation. With the blindfold once again secured, Emma steadied herself. The rifle's audio-guided system hummed softly, a trusted companion in this dance of sound and precision. The targets appeared in rapid succession, demanding split-second decisions and flawless execution. Emma's shots rang out with unwavering accuracy, each bullet finding its mark amid the shifting array. The crowd's initial skepticism gave way to genuine admiration, the applause swelling with each successful hit. The live broadcast captured the transformation, from doubt to belief, from exclusion to acceptance. In the wake of her performance, conversations began to shift. The focus moved from controversy to celebration of skill and innovation. Emma's journey became a catalyst for broader discussions within the shooting community about inclusivity and the future of the sport. As the day wore on and the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows over the range, Emma stood resolute. The trials she faced extended beyond the competition, into the hearts and minds of those grappling with change. Yet, her calm determination remained unshaken. Her story was no longer just about a shooter overcoming limitations. It had become a symbol of progress, resilience, and the courage to challenge established norms. Emma Lawson's presence at Cedarville was rewriting the rules, not only of marksmanship but of what it meant to compete and to belong. The range slowly emptied, but the impact of the day lingered, a quiet revolution unfolding one shot at a time. Under the fading light of a late afternoon sun, the Cedarville shooting range hummed with a mixture of anticipation and cautious respect. Emma Lawson, having weathered waves of skepticism and controversy, now faced her most critical test yet, a demonstration that would either cement her place among the elite or unravel the fragile acceptance she had begun to earn. The atmosphere was thick with tension as Emma prepared to step back onto the firing line. The earlier inspection of her equipment had validated its compliance, but the murmurs still lingered, a reminder that acceptance was not yet unanimous. Cameras from media outlets and smartphones alike focused intently, broadcasting the event live to an audience that stretched far beyond the range's boundaries. Emma's coach stood nearby, his gaze steady and encouraging. He had guided her through months of preparation, instilling not only technical skill but the resilience necessary to face scrutiny both overt and subtle. The upcoming challenge was designed to test her mettle under pressure, a blindfolded shot at a moving target, this time more complex and unpredictable, demanding an even greater mastery of her unique skills and technology. As Emma donned the blindfold, the world contracted to a realm of sound, touch, and instinct. The rifle's audio-guided sight came alive, emitting subtle pulses and directional tones that translated the target's erratic path into a navigable map. Her hands gripped the tactile feedback surfaces, each ridge and texture communicating critical information. Muscle memory and reflexes, honed through countless repetitions, guided her movements. The moving target, a series of steel plates shifting unpredictably along multiple rails, began its chaotic dance. The crowd fell into a hushed silence, the only sounds the soft whir of the target mechanisms and the faint hum of Emma's sight system. Time seemed to dilate as she tracked the erratic motion, her focus absolute. Then, the first shot rang out, a precise crack that echoed across the range. The bullet struck true, the steel plate resonating with a sharp clang. Emma's rhythm was steady, each subsequent shot following in perfect sequence, adapting seamlessly to the target's shifting positions. The crowd's initial skepticism gave way to awe, eyes wide as they witnessed a display of precision and adaptability that defied expectations. Jake Turner, standing amidst the spectators, shifted uneasily. His earlier bravado had diminished, replaced by a reluctant admiration. The performance was undeniable, a testament to skill, innovation, and unyielding dedication. As the final plate fell, applause erupted, swelling into a chorus of approval that rippled through the stands. Cameras captured the moment, streaming live to an audience captivated by the unfolding narrative. Emma lowered her rifle gracefully, the blindfold still in place, and allowed herself a measured breath. Behind the scenes, competition officials exchanged nods of approval, their earlier doubts assuaged by the undeniable demonstration of compliance and skill. The validation was not merely technical, it was a recognition of Emma's rightful place in the sport. The social media landscape shifted dramatically. Hashtags celebrating Emma's achievement trended worldwide, and messages of support flooded in from communities both within and beyond the shooting world. Discussions emerged about accessibility, the integration of technology, and the evolving definitions of fairness and competition. Emma's coach approached the podium for a brief statement, emphasizing the spirit of innovation and inclusivity that had brought them to this moment. Emma's performance exemplifies how dedication and technology can harmonize to expand opportunities without compromising integrity, he declared. The statement resonated, marking a turning point in the broader conversation. Among the competitors, attitudes began to soften. Conversations that had once been marked by doubt and dismissal evolved into discussions of respect and curiosity. Emma's journey inspired reflections on the nature of competition and the potential for growth through embracing diversity and innovation. As dusk settled over Cedarville, Emma stood quietly amidst the dispersing crowd. The challenges she faced extended beyond the firing line, into perceptions, biases, and the evolving culture of her sport. Yet, her calm resilience remained unshaken, a beacon for those navigating similar paths. The day's events had transformed more than just the scoreboard. They had sparked a dialogue, challenged assumptions, and expanded horizons. Emma Lawson's presence at Cedarville was no longer a question, it was a catalyst, a symbol of progress forged through skill, courage, and the relentless pursuit of possibility. The range grew still as night fell, but the impact of Emma's performance echoed far beyond the shooting lanes, signaling a new era where determination and innovation converged to redefine excellence. The morning light filtered gently through the towering pines surrounding the Cedarville range, casting dappled shadows over the quiet rows of targets still faintly marked by the echoes of yesterday's competition. The atmosphere had shifted subtly but unmistakably. Emma Lawson's performance had not only stunned the crowd but ignited conversations far beyond the boundaries of the shooting range. Today, the air hummed with a renewed energy, one tinged with possibility and the promise of change. News outlets and social media channels buzzed incessantly, their feeds flooded with videos of Emma's precise shots, her innovative equipment, and the unfolding saga of a competitor challenging long-held norms. Industry insiders and sports commentators debated the implications, while sponsors and organizations saw the potential to reshape the future of competitive shooting. Emma, seated quietly in a corner of the competitor's lounge, absorbed the whirlwind around her with a serene composure. Her coach sat nearby, eyes scanning messages and reports that reflected a growing wave of support and interest. The narrative was no longer about a single match or a solitary competitor, it had blossomed into a broader dialogue about accessibility, technology, and the essence of sport. Corporations specializing in adaptive technologies reached out, intrigued by the possibilities Emma's equipment represented. Discussions began about funding, research, and the development of tools that could open competitive shooting to those previously sidelined by physical limitations. Emma's story had become a beacon, illuminating pathways for athletes with disabilities and challenging the community to embrace innovation without fear. Within the shooting sports community, conversations deepened. Traditionalists who had once resisted change found themselves reconsidering, prompted by Emma's undeniable skill and the clear demonstration that technology could augment rather than diminish the purity of marksmanship. Forums and conferences buzzed with debates on regulations, ethics, and the balance between human ability and technological assistance. Emma herself became a reluctant but powerful symbol. Invitations to speak at events, participate in panels, and collaborate with engineers and advocates filled her schedule. Despite the growing spotlight, she remained grounded, focusing on honing her craft and sharing her experiences with others who faced similar hurdles. Her coach, reflecting on the journey, recognized the broader significance of their efforts. "What Emma has shown is that barriers are often constructs of perception," he said quietly. "When we combine determination with innovation, we unlock potential that benefits not just one, but many." The sponsorship interest translated into tangible support. New funding allowed Emma to access cutting-edge materials and collaborate with designers to refine her equipment further. These advancements promised to enhance performance while adhering strictly to competition rules, emphasizing fairness and integrity. Media stories began to feature profiles not only of Emma but of other athletes who, inspired by her example, were pioneering their own paths. The ripple effect was unmistakable, signaling a shift toward inclusivity and empowerment within the sport. Back at the range, the daily rhythm continued: practice sessions, drills, and strategy meetings, but now infused with a sense of purpose that transcended individual achievement. Emma's presence had catalyzed a movement, one that encouraged athletes and organizers alike to envision a future where skill and innovation coexisted harmoniously. The community began to embrace adaptive technologies as tools that could level the playing field rather than tilt it unfairly. This evolving perspective fostered collaboration between engineers, athletes, and regulatory bodies, working together to craft guidelines that balanced progress with tradition. Emma's personal growth mirrored the evolution around her. From a quiet competitor once dismissed by peers, she had blossomed into a confident advocate for change. Her story resonated deeply, inspiring others to challenge limitations and pursue excellence on their own terms. As the sun set over Cedarville, casting golden hues across the range, Emma prepared for another day of training. The weight of expectation was present but tempered by a profound sense of mission. She was no longer just competing, she was helping to reshape the landscape of competitive shooting, one shot at a time. The legacy she was building extended beyond medals and titles. It was a testament to resilience, creativity, and the power of embracing difference. Emma Lawson's journey had sparked a transformation, one that promised to make the sport more accessible, dynamic, and inclusive for generations to come. And as the stars began to twinkle above the quiet range, the future of shooting sports gleamed with new possibilities, illuminated by the unwavering determination of a young woman who dared to see beyond boundaries. The early morning light filtered softly through the windows of the Cedarville Training Hall, casting a pale glow over the rows of targets and shooting lanes now familiar to Emma Lawson. The air held a quiet energy, less the tension of competition and more the hopeful breath of new beginnings. Emma moved deliberately through her warm-up routine, each motion measured and precise, a reflection of the journey that had brought her here. Once the subject of skepticism and dismissal, Emma had transformed into a figure of admiration and inspiration. The whispers of doubt that had once shadowed her every move had given way to nods of respect and, in some cases, reluctant acceptance. Yet, it was the deeper change, the shift within herself, that marked the most profound evolution. Her coach stood nearby, observing with a mixture of pride and quiet satisfaction. "You've come a long way," he said softly, eyes tracing the smooth arc of her practiced movements. Emma smiled faintly, acknowledging both the distance traveled and the path still ahead. The narrative unfolded through the minds of those who had witnessed Emma's ascent. Former critics, like Jake Turner, wrestled with their own prejudices and assumptions. Jake, once dismissive and brash, now approached Emma with a newfound respect. The walls of arrogance and skepticism he had built began to crumble as he reflected on her relentless dedication and undeniable skill. In a candid moment during a break in training, Jake admitted, "I thought you were just lucky at first. But watching you, seeing the work you put in, it's clear you belong here. You've changed how I think about this sport." Emma nodded, the exchange marking a subtle but significant shift in the culture around her. The barriers of doubt and bias were not easily dismantled, but moments like this hinted at a growing willingness to embrace change. Emma's own journey had been as much internal as external. The challenges she faced had forged resilience, self-assurance, and a deeper understanding of her capabilities. No longer defined solely by her legal blindness or the technology she employed, she had embraced her identity as a marksman, complex, skilled, and unyielding. Her story resonated beyond the shooting range, inspiring others facing their own battles against limitation and expectation. Invitations came from schools, advocacy groups, and sports organizations, each seeking to share the message that boundaries are often meant to be challenged. Emma spoke candidly about the importance of perseverance, innovation, and self-belief. "It's not just about hitting a target," she explained during one such event. "It's about seeing beyond what others think you can do and proving it to yourself every day." This message struck a chord, echoing through communities far removed from the world of competitive shooting. Her experiences became a touchstone for those striving to overcome obstacles, a beacon illuminating the power of determination. Within the shooting community, Emma's influence spurred conversations about inclusivity and adaptation. Coaches began to rethink training methods, incorporating techniques that accommodated a wider range of abilities. Equipment manufacturers took note, investing in research and development inspired by Emma's innovative rifle and its potential to broaden participation. The sport itself began to evolve, embracing a more diverse array of competitors and fostering an environment where talent and ingenuity were celebrated in all forms. Emma's legacy was no longer confined to her own achievements, it was woven into the fabric of a community moving toward greater openness and acceptance. As the season progressed, Emma prepared to defend her title at the upcoming World Championships. The anticipation was palpable, but her focus remained steady. The blindfolded shots that had once seemed impossible were now a hallmark of her skill, a testament to the hours of disciplined practice and unwavering commitment. The media buzzed with anticipation, heralding her as a trailblazer and a symbol of progress. Yet, Emma remained grounded, viewing the championship not as a final destination but as another step in an ongoing journey. In quiet moments, she reflected on how far she had come, from the early days of doubt and dismissal to standing on the brink of international acclaim. The path had been arduous, marked by skepticism and challenge, but also by moments of triumph and connection. Her coach's voice echoed in her mind, "You're not just competing with others, you're competing with expectations, yours and theirs. And you're winning." The day of the championship arrived with a crisp clarity, the stadium filled with spectators eager to witness history in the making. Emma stepped onto the firing line, the weight of the moment balanced by a deep sense of preparedness and calm. The blindfold was placed over her eyes, the world retreating to a realm of sound, touch, and instinct. Her rifle, an extension of her will and skill, hummed softly with its audio guidance. The targets appeared, complex, challenging, moving unpredictably. With steady breath and unwavering focus, Emma fired. Each shot was a masterstroke of precision, a dance of technology and talent harmonized in perfect sync. The crowd watched in rapt silence, the tension mounting with every bullet. When the final shot rang out, the applause was thunderous, a celebration not just of victory but of resilience, innovation, and the power to transcend limitations. Emma stood tall, her trembling hands steady now, as the reality of her accomplishment settled in. The legacy she was building was unfolding before a global audience, inspiring those who had once doubted and empowering those who still faced their own battles. In that moment, Emma Lawson was more than a competitor, she was a symbol of what could be achieved when determination meets opportunity, when barriers are challenged, and when the human spirit refuses to be constrained. The journey continued, but the path was now illuminated by the light of possibility, a testament to the enduring power of belief and the courage to redefine what is possible. The stadium was alive with a palpable energy, the kind that only a world championship could summon. Rows of seats brimmed with spectators from every corner of the globe, their faces a mosaic of anticipation and admiration. Cameras lined the edges of the firing range, broadcasting live feeds that carried Emma Lawson's story far beyond the confines of this arena. The air hummed with a collective breath held in suspense, waiting to witness a performance that had already rewritten the narrative of competitive shooting. Emma stood at the firing line, her posture steady and poised. The familiar weight of her custom rifle rested comfortably in her hands, an extension of her will and skill. Her eyes, sharp despite the blindfold she was about to don, reflected a quiet determination, a resolve forged through years of overcoming doubt, defying expectations, and relentless training. This was more than a competition, it was a culmination of a journey that had transformed her from an underdog into a symbol of resilience and innovation. The crowd fell silent as the announcer's voice echoed, introducing Emma with a mix of reverence and excitement. Whispers rippled through the stands, stories of her extraordinary feats, the technology that augmented her abilities, and the barriers she had shattered. Among the spectators were former skeptics now turned believers, her coach standing just beyond the line, eyes steady and proud. With deliberate care, Emma secured the blindfold, shutting out the world of sight and narrowing her focus to the realm of sound and sensation. The sophisticated audio-guided sight in her rifle activated with a soft hum, translating the complex ballet of targets into a series of pulses and tones only she could decipher. Her fingers found the tactile grips, each ridge a language of feedback guiding her aim. The targets were formidable, moving at varying speeds and trajectories, some obscured momentarily by obstacles designed to test adaptability and precision. The challenge was unprecedented, pushing the limits of marksmanship and the symbiosis between human skill and technological aid. Emma's breathing slowed, syncing with the rhythm of the moving targets and the nuanced cues from her rifle. Each shot was a calculated decision, a synthesis of instinct, training, and innovation. The rifle's report echoed crisply across the range, each bullet striking true, splitting steel plates, triggering sensors, and marking perfect scores. The crowd watched in rapt silence, the tension mounting with every successful hit. Cameras captured Emma's unwavering focus, the subtle movements that spoke of mastery and control. The live broadcast amplified the moment, millions around the world witnessing the defiance of limits and the triumph of determination. As the final target fell, a wave of astonishment and applause swept through the stadium. The cheers built into a crescendo, a thunderous ovation that acknowledged not just a champion, but a pioneer. Emma lowered her rifle, her hand steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The blindfold came off, revealing eyes glistening with the weight of accomplishment and the spark of something beyond victory, a mission fulfilled. Jake Turner, seated among the audience, rose and joined the standing ovation, his expression one of genuine respect and humility. The earlier rivalry had transformed into a shared acknowledgement of excellence and the reshaping of what was possible. Emma's coach approached, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. "You've done more than win today," he said quietly. "You've changed the game." The media frenzy that followed was relentless yet celebratory. Interviews, profiles, and features painted a portrait of a competitor who had transcended the sport's traditional boundaries. Emma's story became a beacon for aspiring athletes everywhere, especially those confronting their own challenges and doubts. In the days that followed, the reverberations of her victory sparked broader discussions within the world of competitive shooting and beyond. Governing bodies began revisiting regulations to accommodate the evolving intersection of technology and human performance. Sponsorships and investments flowed into adaptive equipment research, promising a future where accessibility and excellence were not mutually exclusive. Emma's legacy extended beyond titles and records. She embodied a narrative of empowerment, resilience, and the courage to redefine expectations. Her journey ignited a movement, a call to embrace diversity, innovation, and the boundless potential of the human spirit when given the tools and opportunity to soar. As the stadium emptied and the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the range, Emma stood quietly, absorbing the enormity of the moment. The path ahead was still unwritten, but the foundation was unshakable, a testament to what can be achieved when resolve meets possibility. Her pink rifle, once a source of mockery and doubt, now stood as a symbol of transformation and hope. Emma Lawson's name echoed through the halls of history, not merely as a champion, but as a trailblazer who shattered limits and inspired a generation to see beyond barriers and believe in their own strength. The world watched, inspired, as Emma prepared for the next chapter, her story a living testament to the enduring power of determination, innovation, and the unyielding pursuit of greatness.